All right, welcome to Bet the Edge. I'm Jay Croucher, joined by a special guest today. Drew Dinsick is in Greece, I believe, hunting down the man who cost me dearly in the 2023 playoffs, Giannis and his friends. The worst loss of my life when they lost to the Heat in round one. So we have today filling in Sam Panayotovich, Sammy P, co-host of BetQL Daily on Odyssey. Sam is going to help me break down Colts-Packers, Bucs-Lions, Bears-Texans on Sunday Night Football, and then we'll close out with our best bets. But how are you, Sammy?
How nice must it be to be able to go to Greece during week 2 of the NFL? Is he serious?
Well, yeah, Drew Dinsick is a man. He lives a very mysterious life. And this is, just adding to the layers of mystery of his existence. Yeah, kind of geological engineer, sports bettor, content man, Greece surveyor. He does a lot of stuff, Mr. Dinsick, and he will be jumping back and forth on the show. But he is, soaking up the sunshine of Greece at the moment.
It's unbelievable. Him and I do a lot of business together. We trade a lot of information, and sometimes he will text me back. It'll be 3:30 in the morning on the East Coast, and I'll get a text or 2 texts, and I'm like, "Doesn't he live in California?" And then he's, "Oh no, I'm in Greece, or I'm in Japan." I'm like, "Yeah, okay, whatever. I'm done playing Where's Carmen Sandiego or Where's Waldo with him. I'm just done."
Yeah, the thing about Drew too is that a lot of his biggest edges as a bettor are on very kind of niche events, and the niche events often happening on the other side of the world at strange hours. So you get like texts at 4 a.m. about some random marathon runner or cyclist or whatever. It's very good. He lives a very good life. All right. Also, who leads a very good life, Sammy, is Shane Steichen and the Indianapolis Colts. They are 2.5-point favorites at the Packers. This is the first game I'm going to hit on. The total is 41. This looked like it was going to be a super fun game a week and a half ago, and now not as much, perhaps, with the Malik Willis show filling in for the more well-frequented and higher ticket prices Jordan Love show. The total comes down as a result. What's your read on this game?
Well, let me start by saying I got a text on Wednesday night that I didn't expect to get, and this is from another guy that is in the know about a lot of things. And I was on my way from Florida to Boston, just flying back home. And the text basically read, "Are we 1,000% that Jordan Love is out? ? And I'm thinking, where is this coming from? Because on Friday, when Love gets hurt, the fallout is he's going to miss, 3 to 6 weeks. But you know what's weird, Jay, is that the Packers, at least as of now, as we do this, have not made a move in the quarterback room. They just have Jordan Love and Malik Willis. And Matt LaFleur the other day said, well, Love doesn't really need to practice to be cleared. So I'm thinking to myself, whoa, is there a possibility that Love could play? And that would certainly swing the number back, because the look-ahead number here, I believe, was Green Bay. Was it Green Bay -5? Yeah. So the summer number was -5. And now we get out to Indy -2.5, -3. And you're thinking, A, is Jordan Love worth that much to the line? I don't know. And B, is there a chance he can play? Now, obviously, I'm not saying he's going to, but when you hear that question from a guy in the know, you start to wonder. I think Green Bay's going to be fine in this game. I worry about them big picture, because without Jordan Love, this is not a playoff team. They're going to need him back to be able to get into the NFC postseason. But Anthony Richardson playing outside is a different deal. It's nice to be in the dome and throw those Hail Marys down the field that don't really wobble in the wind or weather or anything, and guys make catches and guys score touchdowns. But he's been a different guy throughout his college career and in a very small sample size in the pros playing outdoors. So I'm inclined to think that this Packers side, even with Malik Willis, is a great teaser piece. From 2.5 through the 3, through the 7, through the 8 now, which, as you know, is a lot more important, because teams are down 14 late, they score a touchdown, go for 2. So the 8 is, in some weird way, almost as important as the 7 in a teaser. So I don't want to get around the side. I like the Packers in the dog row usually. LaFleur's been always very good covering numbers. Yes, I'm concerned about Willis, but this move to me feels like it's a little too much. And in a teaser, I can get them through 7 and through 8. And I think that's a really, really solid look.
Yeah, there's a lot going on in this game. I don't really know what to make of either of these teams. Like Jordan Love, he has a sprained MCL, which, that sounds terrible. Tom Brady tore his ACL the year the Bucs won the Super Bowl, and he just played on it the whole season. So I don't think it necessarily rules Jordan Love out. I definitely take your point about it being weird, the context around the lack of moves they've made at quarterback. Also, I think it's very instructive that seemingly there was no consideration about putting Jordan Love on IR, which means they think that he's back in 3 weeks at max. So yeah, I don't think he's going to play, but I think there is. Yeah, I wouldn't rule it out, and I certainly think there is scope that on Monday there are reports that Jordan Love's actually going to be back next week. That type of thing wouldn't shock me at all. In terms of if it is Malik Willis, who don't think is a very good quarterback, but with this Packers team at home, I think their defense, the Packers, is probably a little bit maligned at the moment because they gave up all those bomb plays and they got gashed by Saquon Barkley. Like, I think you have to regress expectations, or you have to kind of adjust expectations for the Eagles and Packers on the basis that it was just a weird game played in Sao Paulo on a really slippery field. And I'm not sure how much to read into the fact that, both quarterbacks look terrible. People are slipping over all over the place. So there's that on one side. And then on the other side, Anthony Richardson, who everyone adores at the moment because he made the 3 bomb 50-yard throws. I think the leader for 50-yard throws last season had 6 for the entire season, and Richardson had 3 in one game. So that's obviously not sustainable. And then the other thing, Sam, is just that he was 9 of 19 passing, and he had 58% accuracy in college. I came out of that game kind of feeling a bit worse about Anthony Richardson. What about you?
Yeah, I think he made the home run plays, but in totality, he was very average. The one thing to pay attention to with Richardson, and again, the books always catch up. You know this. You were behind the book for a while. You know the drill. The touchdown market on Richardson, because, this has been a guy in 4 full games with Shane Steichen. He only had 3 full contests last year and 1 game this year where he played the whole game, all 60 minutes. He has a rushing touchdown in every game. Because Steichen, I remember when Steichen and Richardson first came together, and reading some of the clippings about how they're going to use him, he basically said, without saying, I'm going to use him like Cam Newton, inside the 10, inside the 5. And what that means is I'm going to use him as a bulldozer to run your ass over. And Richardson, again, last week scores a rushing touchdown against the Texans. Now, the price on him to score at BetMGM is around that 130 number right now. I believe that's going to be a good look at plus money until it goes away. I mean, this could be a guy eventually, Jay, that we get to that Jalen Hurts price where it's minus 110 or minus 105. I think it's very interesting to watch that team inside the 20 because he throws the ball a lot between the 20s, but when they get inside the 20, he turns into a run-first guy. And we saw it again last week. Steichen dialed up a bunch of quarterback design runs inside the 10, inside the 5. Him to score a touchdown. I don't like them in the game. I don't love laying 2.5 on the road, but I think he's a good look at that price to score.
Yep. I think it's interesting. There's always this idea that coaches and offensive coordinators, they want to protect their running quarterback, and they want to run Josh Allen less this season. But with guys like Allen and Richardson, what makes them special is that they run over guys and that they are able to make those runs. And if you take them out, then they're not as useful as quarterback. Obviously, Josh Allen is still amazing, whatever he's going to do. But Anthony Richardson, a huge part of his skill set is going to be running the ball. And this idea that, he's going to run less to protect his body because he got hurt multiple times last season. I don't know, Jaden Daniels just ran the ball 16 times in his first game. I think you just run these guys. And once you get to a certain level, I get Patrick Mahomes protects his body, but Patrick Mahomes isn't Josh Allen or Anthony Richardson in terms of how much of his value is with his rushing. So I agree. I had thought there might be an idea that they would lean on Taylor closer in the red zone, but based on the Texans game, and I think just kind of thinking about it logically and what Richardson's strengths are as a quarterback too, do you want Anthony Richardson trying to pinpoint accurate passes in the red zone, or you just want to use him to use his legs and show that, he is, perhaps the best quarterback athlete in the NFL? So I agree with you there. All right. before we move to Bucs-Lions, dominate this NFL season with a Fantasy Life Plus subscription. Get weekly rankings, stat-sit advice, DFS analysis, and betting tools. Use promo code SEASON20 for 20% off. Go to fantasylife.com/rotoworld to learn more. All right, not a lot of respect for my man Baker Mayfield coming off a magnificent week one. He's a 7.5-point dog at the Detroit Lions. Total is a massive 51.5. Game that's priced somewhat similarly to their round 2 divisional round matchup in the playoffs last year in Detroit, where Detroit always kind of had them slightly at arm's length, though Baker was driving down the field, I think, to tie it up down the end. Keen for your thoughts, particularly on the Lions and what you thought about them coming out of Sunday Night Football in a game that I don't understand why it was that close, given all the injuries that the Rams had. Do you think more or less of the Lions coming out of that one?
Well, that's the power of Dan Campbell. He can make a blowout a close game. I was banging on the desk last year for everybody talking about how great of a coach he was, and I just don't see it. I think he's a guy who guys love to play for. I just don't think he makes good decisions inside games. Now, we can have that debate maybe a different day on being too aggressive or being too conservative. But when you have a 17-3 lead on the Rams in your own building, why are you not running the ball? Run the ball. I mean, the Lions have a top 3 offensive line, and they are exceptional at moving guys out of the way. So when they started throwing the ball up by 14, I was like, what the hell is Campbell doing? What is he doing? Montgomery was getting 3-4 yards of carry, and they kind of shied away from that. But that's kind of what Dan Campbell does. The key to me in this game is the Bucs secondary. And of course, we've seen this number blow through 7 earlier in the week. I mean, a move on Wednesday, Thursday is pretty telling, but this was 6.5 at BetMGM, got to 7, and now the 7s are gone. That tells me a lot. So Tampa could be down 3 defensive backs, and they've got 2 guys on the defensive line that popped up on the injury list. And you're talking to a guy that was on the Bucs -3, -3.5 last week, and had the Bucs in Survivor because the Commanders are awful. This is a huge step up in competition. Detroit has a much better offense, obviously. Detroit has a better secondary, and Detroit has a pass rush led by Aiden Hutchinson. So this line move through 7 told me everything I needed to know. I don't want to lay 7.5, but here's what I am doing. I don't care about Thanksgiving. I am using the Lions in my Survivor this week because the Lions, as long as I've been alive, Jay, have ruined Thanksgiving. So I just can't. I can't save them for Thanksgiving. I like the Lions here. This will be a popular teaser play as well. Probably goes over, even though it's moved up a couple of points. But would you be surprised if this was 38-20 Detroit? I wouldn't.
No, I don't think that would be surprising. To your point, like Baker Mayfield and the Bucs, yeah, they lit up the Commanders. The Commanders might have the worst defense in the entire league. I think it's them in Arizona. They probably 2 early front runners, and I think that Baker Mayfield in particular is a quarterback who is his performance is extremely variable based on the quality of defense. And yes, that applies to every quarterback who has ever lived, but it's particularly pronounced with Baker because of how good he is from a clean pocket versus how he is against pressure. And like the Commanders they just didn't have anything. And so he was able to just tee off with Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. With the Lions, like the thing about the Lions, who I get it, like everyone's kind of, not really sneaky because they were the second favorite in the NFC, but everyone's kind of NFC title winner du jour pick the Lions. Like Jared Goff's he's just not that good. Like he's fine. And last year he was very solid overall. And I thought he actually played pretty well in the playoffs. He wasn't the reason they lost to the Niners. He did his job in that game, but like he just wasn't good against the Rams. And to me, maybe even the bigger concern is that it's very strange to me that the Rams were able to generate so much pressure on Goff against that O-line, which is supposed to be, to your point, a top 3 unit. And Goff was under pressure, and he's getting sacked by Jared Verse. And when Goff is under pressure, he's just not very good. And that's been the story of his entire career. So there's a lot of weird stuff about the Lions game. The fact that they couldn't protect Goff as much as they should have against the Rams defense that doesn't have Aaron Donald anymore. The fact that Amon-Ra St. Brown did absolutely nothing, which is like really bizarre because he's generally like the highest floor receiver in the league week to week. So I don't really know what to make of the Lions overall. But going back to the Bucs, like what do you expect from their defense which, you can't really read too much into week one because it was the Commanders and rookie quarterback, and they were playing with a lead the whole time. Do you think that Todd Bowles and blitzing Goff to get pressure is potentially an avenue for the Bucs to cover here?
If they blitz, they better get back, and that's the problem, right? They're down bodies in the secondary. So if you're going to have guys like St. Brown and Jameson Williams and man coverage down the field, that's going to be a problem. And the good thing about the Lions this year, and I'm with you, I'm more glass half empty because, again, it's the Lions and they can't have nice things. The Lions play, of their 17 games this year, they play 14 of those 17 in a dome, which is perfect for Jared Goff. I mean, that's like ideal. And I think you made a good point. He's never going to be the reason that they win big games, but he can be the reason they lose big games by trying to do too much, by holding on to the ball too long. If they can set up the pass via the run, which I tend to agree with you, the Pro Football Focus O-line ratings are kind of meh. I mean, I think generally speaking, they're accurate, but that's a better run line than a pass line, if that makes any sense. Yep. So if they can run the ball and set up the play action and get the tight end moving, they're going to be just fine. But this is a team where I think history tells us you can't just pencil them into a deep playoff run because of what they did last year. A lot of teams get far, fall flat at that big moment like the Lions did, and then never get back. So big picture, I have my concerns, but in this game, my biggest concern is Tampa's secondary. They are going to be in trouble. If the blitz doesn't get home and you got guys on islands back deep, that's going to be a problem for the Bucs.
Yeah. The way that I would look to bet this game is if you're building a story around the game, I would just build the same story that's happened the last two times these teams have played, which is that the Bucs, they always have a very good run defense, it seems. And the way that the Lions have beaten them the past two times they played, both last year, is through the air. In the playoff game, Jared Goff threw the ball 43 times, and he had 287 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks. When they played back in week 6 last season in Tampa, Jared Goff threw the ball 44 times for 353 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks. And so I think if you want to build a story for the game that can be taken advantage of, it would be that the Lions lean on the pass, that they're able to get pressure on Mayfield, and Mayfield doesn't look anything like he did last week. And so what I would be doing in terms of building parlays, stories of the game, is to take alternate overs on Jared Goff, alternate spreads on the Lions. There are kind of inverse correlations that I think can be taken advantage of there, given that generally when you're covering alternate spreads, you're running the ball more. I think that the Lions, just with this matchup, they may just continue to lean on throwing the ball, given that they're going up against a tough run defense, and Goff has had such success against the secondary both times last year.
Yeah, and that second game they played in the postseason, 31-23, the final score. So that's sort of where I'm at, more of a higher scoring affair. The first meeting was very low and slow in Tampa. That was a weird game, a bunch of turnovers. That was 20-6, but both teams moved the ball fairly well in that game. I just think you get some points in this one, maybe a first half over if you're inclined to go that way. And then that way you avoid that second half. Say the Lions are up 17 or something, they just run the ball in the second half. And oftentimes overs turn into unders in the second half when one team has a big lead.
Yep. Okay. It's a matchup between two of the brightest young quarterbacks in week 2 on Sunday night. We'll see how bright Caleb Williams is. We'll get into that. Watch Caleb Williams and the Bears face off with CJ Stroud and the Texans in Houston. Coverage begins at 7 p.m. Eastern on NBC and Peacock.
As you all know by now, we've teamed up with BetMGM this season. We'll be using BetMGM lines to make all our picks, and we'll have special offers for our listeners each week. If you haven't signed up to BetMGM yet, use bonus code BETEDGE, and you'll get up to a $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. Here's how it works. Download the BetMGM app and sign up using bonus code BETEDGE. Deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game, and you'll receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets if your first bet loses. Just make sure you use bonus code BETEDGE when you sign up. See BetMGM.com for terms. 21 plus only. U.S. promotional offers not available in New York, Nevada, Ontario, or Puerto Rico. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Available in the U.S. Call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369 in New York. Call 1-800-NEXT-STEP in Arizona, 1-800-327-5050 in Massachusetts, 1-800-BETS-OFF in Iowa, 1-800-981-0023 in Puerto Rico. First bet offer for new customers only, subject to eligibility requirements. Rewards are non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire in 7 days in partnership with Kansas Crossing Casino and Hotel. Don't forget, if you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use bonus code BETEDGE and get your $1,500 first bet offer today.
Okay, Sunday Night Football, another big matchup. Texans, 6.5-point favorites, home against the Chicago Bears, who, as I tweeted out, at least at one spot, they were minus 120 to miss the playoffs before they won in week one, and then they won, and they drifted to minus 170 to miss the playoffs because of how, I guess, relatively unimpressive Caleb Williams looked, even though the defense was as advertised. Now we have Rome Odunze dealing with his own knee injury, totally at 45.5. What's your read on SNF, Sammy?
So a couple things. Number one, I had the Titans plus 4.5.
I don't know how they lost. Yeah.
Not even lost. How do you not cover? I mean, get losing. How do you not cover? You're up 17-0, and the other team doesn't even score an offensive touchdown. That's almost, I mean, you're a probability guy. That's almost impossible to come back, cover that number when you don't score an offensive touchdown. But my concern for the Bears in this game, because we have to basically build off last week into this week, the Bears faced Will Levis last week, who will probably be bagging groceries next year or the year after. Facing CJ Stroud is going to be a much tougher task. And I was laughing because I'm a Chicago guy. I'm flying back from Vegas. I get on the plane. It's Tennessee 17, Chicago nothing. And I land and the Bears win and cover. And all Twitter says is it feels like 06. It feels like 06 with the defense and the special teams. Let's see how good that defense is when you face Houston's offense. So I'm big time concerned about Chicago's ability to get stops because CJ Stroud is a freak. And they have a couple concerns injury-wise at wide receiver, but the quarterback makes the receivers in a lot of situations. Jay, I don't like this move down. Well, I shouldn't say I don't like it. I don't agree with it. I think this total is too low. I think it should be on the other side of 47 because Houston could easily in this game get me to 31. So then I need maybe 17 or more from Chicago, which is maybe questionable, but also with that same coin, Tennessee's defense made a lot of big additions in the offseason. They added some beef on the line. They strengthened up the secondary. So that Tennessee defense, I believe, is better than the market actually understands. So what's the deal with Houston's defense? That's the last part of this conversation. Anthony Richardson was actually okay in that game. A better defense shuts that thing down. A better defense doesn't allow those home run plays. And there's one thing Caleb Williams did really well in college: throw the deep ball and throw on the run. So if Houston can't get home into that pocket, we will see a better Bears attack. We will see more points, which is kind of easy to do when you only, score 0 points on offense as a unit. I think this total is going the wrong way. So I lean to the over. And the other part, when we get to Sunday night, what do we get? Flag, PI, defensive holding, flag. The league would love Caleb Williams and CJ Stroud to play in a shootout. Would it not?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think with Caleb, who now becomes like this week, he just has to be close to the highest variance player in football because I have no idea what he's going to serve up on Sunday night. Week one, he had the highest off-target rate of any quarterback in the NFL, which is insane given that I watch Panthers Saints. But Caleb Williams topped even Bryce Young. And the other issue for Caleb is that he had a 24% off-target rate, and he didn't really have like a super deep average depth of target. It was 7.4 yards. So he just looked a little bit shaken up. He had some moments and some flashes, and he didn't make the killer mistake outside of taking one horrific sack. So I don't know with Caleb. I still think you have to somewhat regress to the idea that he's going to be more what was expected, which was a lot better than what he served up last week. But I think you also have to bake in scope that he could just be really bad his rookie season. And that doesn't mean that he's going to be a bust, but it might be difficult. This offensive line didn't look as good, I think, as people had hoped. The jury's still very much out on Shane Waldron and what he is going to be like as an offensive coordinator. So again, if I was building a story for this game, it would be that quietly, like the Bears defense in the first half didn't look great against Tennessee. Tony Pollard was running all over them. The Titans were in complete control. And I think that the Texans offense has both a very high floor and a very high ceiling. Like the team just can't really fail when they have Stephon Diggs, Nico Collins, Tank Dell, CJ Stroud, Joe Mixon at running back, who I think is a big upgrade over what they had last year, a healthier, more competent offensive line, more continuity and stability there too. So again, if I was betting on this game, I'd be looking at, all right, what alternate spreads on the Texans? Because if Caleb is what he was last week, and the Texans are exactly what we expect them to be, like, would it shock you at all if the Texans win this by 20 plus?
No, I'm at basically 31-17, and I think that's a little conservative. So let me volley this back to you. No, I would not be surprised. Would you be surprised if this was a game that went into the high 50s in terms of the box score? Like when we look at it, it's all said and done. I mean, the total's obviously not going to move that much higher. But in terms of a game that could be 34-20 or 31-20, something like that, like I feel like this has 50s written all over it. And if that's the case, to your point, Houston's going to win relatively easily.
Yeah, and I think the thing with Caleb is that I thought that if Caleb was going to fail, it wasn't going to look at all like the way that he failed last week. I thought there was just going to be more mistakes, like more costly turnovers.
Interceptions, exactly.
More strip sacks. And it wasn't really that. It was just kind of blah. He took the one horrible sack that I mentioned. But outside of that, they just couldn't move the ball. And so I would expect that he is going to be a more volatile quarterback and not kind of fail as kind of the boring fashion that he failed in last week. And so, look, the Texans back end, like outside of Derek Stingley, like it's not amazing. The strength of that Texans defense, I think, is the D line with Will Anderson, with Danielle Hunter. Everyone has great respect for D'Amico Ryans as the defensive head coach, but it is a little bit weird that they gave up 3 50-yard bombs to like Alec Pierce and A.D. Mitchell. Like it's a little bit of a concern that happened. I get that one of the throws is one of the greatest throws of all time from Anthony Richardson, but still he was open. So I think there is scope that this could be a shootout, that Caleb just looks better and maybe that, like it was his first start as an NFL quarterback. Like you can't, like right now, week 1 is 100% of our sample size. So everyone just kind of treats that as gospel. Like, oh, Caleb's terrible. Kirk Cousins is finished. Like, let's see a second week and get a bit more of a sample before we completely declare these guys done. So, yeah, I think there are definitely worlds where this is a shootout and Caleb looks a lot better. There are other worlds too where Caleb Williams just isn't very good and that this turns out into a very one-sided blowout because I think the Bears have a good defense. I don't think that they are the top 5 unit that they were in the back half of last year because last year's defense was just extremely dependent on generating turnovers, which is not as sustainable as you would like. You would like your defense to be elite without depending on turnovers. And again, how do they win the game? Because Will Levis made the worst throw I've ever seen in my entire life, and they ran it back for 6. So again, I would prefer the defense not be as dependent on turnovers, but we'll see. I still think it's a good unit, but I think that Stroud can still cook them.
Bears played a lot of bad quarterbacks down the stretch last year, too. Yeah. There was a lot of guys like Josh Dobbs they saw down the stretch. So that always helps. How about this? How about a flyer on Houston defense or special teams touchdown? I'm not laying 155 on Caleb to throw a pick. That's the price now at BetMGM. They moved that up 30 cents. How about a throw to the other team and a run back? That's a price that I could take a piece of. Houston's defensive or special teams touchdown.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly feels like that is in the offing, given how uncertain he looked of himself in week 1. And yeah, and also with the Bears last year, like I still remember the fact that their defense basically allowed the Chiefs offense their only good game of the season when Mahomes lit them up for like 41. I think Mahomes had like one other really good game against the Chargers. Outside of that, it was just a huge tough slog for the Chiefs offense in terms of explosives, and they're able to do whatever they want against the Bears. I understand that Montez Sweat came over and they changed things around, but still, I don't think this is the all-world defense that some are making it out to be. All right, let's close out with our best bets. Sam, what do you got?
This won't be popular. People are going to hear this and be like, what does this guy know about football? He never played football. True, I never did. But I bet good numbers, damn it. And I took a piece of Cincinnati +6. It is now 5.5 in the market. I understand the Bengals suck early in the season. But on the other side of that narrative is Joe Burrow being very good in his career against Kansas City. How's 3-1 straight up, 3-1 ATS, 9 touchdowns, 3 picks. Chase eats this team alive. Now, we'll wait and see on T. Higgins. If he plays, this number is going to keep coming down. I think he's going to be more available than people understand. So to take 5.5 now, I'm totally cool with that. I'm going to gamble on Higgins being available. If that's the case, this comes down to maybe 4.5 and sits. This feels to me like 24-20 either way. Not going to call my shot, but I will take the points with the Bayou Bengals and Joe Burrow, who's been very good in his career against Kansas City.
Yep, I don't mind that. My best bet is the New Orleans Saints +6.5. They came into the season as the most nondescript team in the NFL, and then they started to get a bit more descript with an impressive performance against the Panthers in week 1. I understand it was the Panthers, but here's what I think is working in the Saints' favor against the Cowboys. I think the Saints are actually higher variance than people realize, and the reason is 2 things. One, Clint Kubiak, who is maybe not the most exciting name as offensive coordinator, he is still like the first guy who has brought like new ideas to the Saints offense in like 20 years, because Pete Carmichael was a disciple of Sean Payton, and now they have just a new offense. And I think the other thing that gives them variance is that their O-line, which was supposed to be the weakness of the team, which, certainly I, and I think most people thought that the O-line might be a bottom 5 unit. O-line was great against the Panthers. And again, I understand it's the Panthers, but this O-line is not like retreads like the Giants were sending out there last year and they just had no chance whatsoever. Spoke about this earlier in the week. The Saints O-line, there's a lot of young guys and a lot of guys who have high pedigree. Fuaga, Ruiz, Penning. These are all first-round picks, all in the past few years. They all look good in week 1. And if they're good, and you have Eric McCoy at center, who's an elite center, all of a sudden this might just be a good O-line. And if Derek Carr is behind a good O-line, then this could be a very competent offense. Chris Olave is an elite wide receiver. Rashid Shaheed, ton of upside. Between Jawan Johnson, Taysom Hill, Kamara, I think this offense could actually be average or slightly above average if they stay healthy. And then you have the Saints defense, which was, top 10, top 12 unit last year, and completely eviscerated Bryce Young and broke his brain and made him look like Zach Wilson on his worst day. So I think that the Saints are perhaps just a solid average team, and they go up against the Cowboys team who the market loathed going into week 1. The market made the Browns 2.5-point favorites and said that the Cleveland Browns are a better team on neutral than Dallas. And I don't really know what to take away from week 1 for Dallas, because Deshaun Watson just blew that thing up and was just so bad that he torpedoed everything. So I think the Cowboys, I think they're clearly a better team than the Saints. I'm not sure that even at home that they're 6.5 points better. So give me New Orleans.
Well, Dallas is going back to the Super Bowl, right? Just ask their fan base.
Yeah, everyone's all in after Deshaun Watson. The funny thing about Deshaun, not that there's really anything funny about Deshaun Watson, but of the 4 quarterbacks, the 4 debacle quarterbacks from week 1, who I'd say Bryce Young, Kirk Cousins, Daniel Jones, Deshaun Watson, not including the rookies because I think they're their own thing. I actually feel the best about Deshaun in terms of his performance going forward, because at least he can move around and maybe be like the 26th best quarterback. Those other 3 guys, maybe Kirk can get a little more spry, but didn't look good for him. I think Bryce Young might just be a write-off. And I think Daniel Jones might be a write-off too at this point.
Yeah, and then you make the call for Michael Penix in Atlanta. Wouldn't that be something? I guess they picked him for a reason. Hey, I was very, very surprised that you and I are both on dogs. Not.
Yeah, sure. Why not? It's overreacting to week 1, or not reacting enough to my beloved New Orleans Saints establishing themselves as perhaps the front runner in the NFC South, whatever that means, given 10-7 is probably going to win that division. Well, Sammy, thank you very much for joining us. Can you tell people where to follow you on social media, and also about BetQL Daily on Odyssey and what you're doing there?
Sure. So Twitter is very simple, at SPShoot, and the new morning show, which we'd love to get you on, Mr. Croucher. We'd love to have you that 9 a to 12 p, Monday to Friday on the Odyssey app, BetQL Network, BetQL Daily with me and Joe Ostrowski. It's a lot of fun. We've been working together a long time, and we're the morning show that bets. That's what we call ourselves.
Okay, brilliant. Everyone make sure to check that out. We are done for now. Don't forget to check out NBCSports.com for more information to help you with your wagers. Thanks to those watching on the NBC Sports YouTube channel. And if you're listening to us in podcast form, don't forget to rate and subscribe. Also a reminder to find all your favorite NBC Sports shows on Amazon Music. Just head to amazon.com/NBC Sports. Thanks very much for tuning in. We'll see you next week.